All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the December very short meeting of the Accelerating Innovation Standing Committee for the Cool Council. Excited to see everybody. Hope everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving after our awesome November convening. So thrilled about the work that we accomplished and the giant step forward that we are making in developing a process and a proposal to go towards the Cool Council for our work. So we're going to go ahead and get started because we are just here for an hour and that's a pretty short time. So I'm going to turn it over to Kathy to get us started on some work stream updates. Kathy. You're on mute, Kathy. There you go.
Okay. All right. So first of all, I'm going to briefly just highlight, I think most of everybody that's on here actually was at the meeting in November, but I'm just going to highlight our November council meeting. And as Sarah has stated, I thought we did some amazing and thoughtful things as well as discussions and reflections. And just a reminder, each committee met as the committees worked on the first day in their committee groups. And then on the second day, we met in two different work stream groups. And that's what I'm going to talk about just very briefly. These work stream groups came about as a result of our committee meeting discussions and identified agenda items such as the moonshot and our council charter. So the first thing I will share is our moonshot work group. And that was I actually was happened to be in that, and it was an exciting time filled with a lot of thoughts and information about what the future looks like. And our moonshot work group came up with this as our moonshot: to build a prosperous Kentucky, we will launch an accountable system that is meaningful and useful to all of our learners. So that's one that we're kicking around, that we shared with everyone, and next steps will be taken on that. And then our council charter, that was coordinated by Karen and Andre. And their question was, what protocols do we establish for the Kentucky United We Learn Council that outlines roles, responsibilities, processes, and procedures while keeping members engaged at the forefront? And a draft charter has been made, and we'll discuss that later on. The Bold New Futures, their question was, how can we ensure diverse representation, which is critical to identifying strategies that serve all students well? Again, that all of these are starting to tie into not only just what our group does, but also what the moonshot will look like. And then the Vibrant Learners, they propose this as what a vibrant learner is. A vibrant learner is learning that matters to students. In partnership with families and communities, students are agents of their own learning, engaged in relevant, authentic, and joyful learning opportunities. Vibrant learning honors students' cultural wealth, gifts, and interests. Vibrant learning accumulates in the application of knowledge and skills demonstrated through personal products. So that's what they're proposing as how we define a vibrant learner. And then Portrait of a Learner, what is the Kentucky United Council's role in supporting the implementation of Portrait of a Learner, which again, all this is all tying into what we will be doing with our work for the next year. And then the Accelerated Innovation System of Systems question, and this one, Susan Lyons is gonna talk a little bit more about, but what they looked at is, how do we create an accountable system that includes local innovation through a menu of options, with us honoring students, streamlining state testing, local adaptability, support vibrant learning, and encourage collaboration. And again, Susan's going to talk about that as we move forward in our meeting. And I think that's pretty much, those were the updates, and those were the committees that we worked with during our November meeting.
Thank you,
Susan?
Kathy, for that recap. We're going to go right on over to Susan to talk about our 6-month goal.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Kathy. Yes, so we, as tradition has it, need to come up with our next 6-month goal. So what is that milestone that will drive and focus our work over the next 6 months? And as Kathy just shared, the November convening was incredibly productive and clarifying for us. I know many of us walked away feeling like that. And so just to recap a little bit and jog your memory, on day one, Andre and Jennifer and I shared some example ideas that we could put on the table that would serve as sort of the essential features or the key anchors of a future system of system design. We came to you with about 5 possible ideas, and then folks added a few more ideas to put on the table. And when we took the temperature of the room at the end of our meeting on day one, it really seemed like there was the most energy around this idea of a menu of options. How can we create local flexibility in assessment by offering schools and districts a menu of options around which students demonstrate their learning? And so we carried that message, as Kathy said, into day 2 when we had our working group around system of systems. We were really privileged to have many people from the Vibrant Learning Committee and the Bold New Future Committee join that working group and provide their input. And for those of you who weren't able to be with us in that space, just know that the menu of options idea really resonated with both groups. So for example, we had somebody from the policy committee or the Bold New Futures Committee that has been talking with the legislature, and this idea of a toolbox of options or a menu of options is something that they had separately also been exploring. And similarly, with the Vibrant Learning Committee members that were able to join us on that second day, they were talking about how the innovations that are happening locally look different when you go to the different districts, and how that flexibility is really meaningful for them, and they see a potential in that menu of option idea. What also came out of that working group was sort of this need for greater cross-committee collaboration. There are a lot of interdependencies when we think about the work of our committee and the work of the other committee. And so it's with that our facilitation team thought that it made sense at this juncture for our 6-month our 6-month goal to include an idea of bringing forth a proposal to the Cool Council to consider around system of system design, right? The policy committee, the Building a Bold New Futures group, one of their grant deliverables is thinking about setting a policy agenda for the state. They really can't set a policy agenda if they don't know what the system design is that they're trying to enable through policy structure. And similarly, the Vibrant Learning Committee, they are going to be working on building out this systems resource bank. They need to be knowing what kind of professional learning and development and guidance from the state can be in that resource bank to better support districts in implementing whatever the future system of system design is. So that work is a little bit also dependent on what we do here in this committee. And then also Kathy likes to say, oh, we have the best committee, not to feed inter-committee competition in any way. But I will say we are the only committee that has yet to bring forth a proposal. So it might be our turn next. I will share my screen to show you what the facilitation group of our standing committee came up with as just some draft language for us to consider here today around what our next 6-month goal could look like if we were to go forth. So I'll read it to you for those of you who might be driving or unable to look at the screen. It says, as a proposed 6-month goal, in April 2024, the Accelerating Innovation Committee will bring forth to the full Cool Council a high-level proposal for a system of systems design that integrates a menu of options approach within the state accountability system. And so I just gave a lot of context and a lot of information. So I'll pause here. What comes up for you when you look at this or when you hear this? Does this resonate? What might it be missing? Would love any feedback on this idea.
Susan, I think it's right on track in terms of the direction we need to go next, especially since we heard from Jim Flynn about the the proposed task force by the legislature. I think they're going to need something like this in order for that to move forward. The only question I have is the idea of local accountability and that fitting into this, that, you know, that could be included within that idea of a state accountability system, but I just want to make sure that we, you know, somehow we bring a focus to that as well.
That's a great point, Jerry, and I'm really glad this resonates with you. I think what's nifty about this design is that it's really flexible and the devil's going to be in the details, right? And so when we go to operationalize, okay, what does a menu of options mean? First off, what is maybe this indicator that we might be adding to the accountability system? What is that intended to indicate or measure, right? We can be thinking about, okay, is that a really a local system measure? Is it an accountability system measure that represents the local work that's happening? Or is it something more specific like readiness or career connections or, you know, deeper learning, right? So I think those are the questions that we'll have to all grapple with in this committee as we think about what does it even mean to have a menu of options indicator within our accountability system. I hope it's flexible enough to account for the types of local systems that you're talking about or other ideas.
Yeah, I think it certainly could. In that menu of options, I would think that that would be incorporated into that somehow.
Other feedback from folks?
I agree with Jerry. I don't know, it doesn't look like there's a whole lot of us on the call that aren't support people. But I also agree, thanks to Cheryl and Paul. I didn't know how you guys are feeling about it. I think it feels on track.
Thank you, Suzanne.
I think it's the best way to meet the needs of the diverse groups that we're trying to honor and serve is by allowing us to, as districts to decide what we want to honor and value. I think that is the best way to do it. I agree.
All right, well, hearing no dissent, we can move on to the next item on the agenda, which will hopefully be only clarifying for folks in terms of, okay, what does it mean to even bring a proposal to the Cool Council and what could that look like? So Andre and Laura, I'll turn it over to you.
Jennifer, were you going to say something?
So yes, I was just going to follow up. I didn't want to jump in front of you and
Go right ahead.
But so we appreciate very much your consensus to move this forward. What we'll do as a Accelerating Innovation Committee is we will put this out to all of our membership of our Accelerating Committee, and everybody will have a chance to vote on it. So this is not the official vote for it. We're just wanting to know right now is this a direction that you would like to go in the next 6 months to vote on? So if it is, then Susan will put it together and then put it out to all of our members. Sarah will likely send an email with a Google form for you to formally cast your vote for this as our next 6-month goal or not. So now I'll pass it to Laura and Andre. So thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. An important point. So thank you for hopping in to remind us about that, just sort of procedural piece. So hi, everybody. Again, my name is Laura Pensano. I think this is just my second of these meetings, so it's nice to see you all again, and I'm happy to be here. I'm going to take a moment just to kind of pick up from where Susan left us with the idea of kind of what's happening next with the proposal. So we don't have our formal vote yet, but it seems that there's momentum in the direction of kind of accepting the 6-month goal, which says we're going to bring a proposal to the Cool Council. Just to start with that endpoint in mind, that council meeting is scheduled for the 25th and 26th of April. And so what we wanted to do is just sort of, we put together an FAQ. Sarah sent it out on Friday. Let me grab the link here as well. We just kind of wanted to take some time in this meeting to make sure we're all on the same page with sort of what to expect with our work ahead. And to acknowledge that sometimes we kind of have an idea of what to expect, and sometimes things are a little less clear. And so that lets us know that we're going to get to kind of mess around with that and be in that mess for a little bit as things become more clear, and we help build that clarity. So in this FAQ, we wanted to kind of just start out with this idea of, okay, why is this proposal, why are we suggesting that proposal be developed right now? Beyond just well, we said it's our goal, so we have to. I think that you all, in queuing up the good work that happened in the November Cool Council meeting, and Susan framed it up really well also, that it makes sense to kind of move forward from this high level framework, which there seems to be some consensus around for a systems of systems approach, and say, okay, it is time to kind of step into the messy parts of this and to start to work out some details so that we all can build clarity there, and we can connect with other committees and make sure they have a better understanding of their work. They're going to need to have more details as they're engaged with their partners as well. So when we think about, you know, why this proposal is being developed now, we want to make sure we're connecting our work, we're adding, we're moving forward rather than just kind of stagnating in one space of like, yeah, this is a good idea. We're kind of really tackling more of the tough questions. So again, know that we're aiming towards the end of April to have the proposal ready for the council. We also know, or I believe that you know, the Cool Council has a charter. So when we think about kind of this third question, what does feedback and voting process look like? That's going to be kind of driven by what that charter sort of under review right now, and so we understand that the review process will be influenced by the kind of details that end up articulated in that charter. But the key things that we're going to need to grapple with, it's important to understand that process, and as that charter is kind of refreshed and finalized in its newer state, we'll make sure that you all understand sort of what to expect. But for our work, we kind of really need to grapple with what's going in this proposal. And you can see the questions here. We have a few responses that start with in 4, 5, 6. This is open to discussion, and that's important to know. And so one point that I want to make off the bat is that one question is, what's going in the proposal for the Cool Council? There is a related, like a cousin question, a close cousin. They get together on weekends. That's like, what's all the information that we need to have moving forward, and we need to connect with other committees, and that will inform this work. So what this committee will need to navigate is there's sort of a breadth of information and detail that's going to be needed for a robust design to move forward. And then there's sort of considerations is all of that what goes to the Cool Council? What's the information that needs to go in the proposal for the Cool Council that's going to be most informative to connect that work appropriately? So all I'm saying is that it might not be all the technical nitty-gritty that needs to go to the Cool Council in the end, or we may decide we want to have every little detail in there. But but we did want to kind of take some time to think about a proposal template. So what you see here in that link is a high-level proposal, which is to provide an example of, hey, here's our purpose in this work. Here's what we recommend at a high level and what steps we see. And we're asking the Cool Council essentially to ratify this direction of work. And so that's one example of sort of what the proposal might look like. We wanted to make sure you saw that because we invite you into the space of thinking about these the proposal structure and the level of detail. We also understand that sometimes it's hard to say, I like a general approach or I don't like a general approach, absent some of those design details that we're going to be working through. So we understand that, but we offer this and we welcome your feedback on there. When we think about wanted to sort of consider what are the potential outcomes of a vote on this proposal at the Cool Council level, that also is influenced by probably the level of detail and what question we ask the Cool Council to vote on. So all of that is to say, we're going to encourage you and engage you in discussion about what the question is that we bring to the Cool Council and how much detail, as I said. Regarding the number of proposals, also open for discussion. And the reason that we wanted to share this with you is just to articulate that there's one path, which is this council brings an accelerated innovation proposal, unique and discrete for this committee to the Cool Council. There's another scenario in which, and I should say, in that first scenario, that proposal will have been vetted and discussed and connected with our other committee friends. So there won't be any surprises in April. That's important to note. But there is a related scenario, which is that instead of a discrete proposal from this committee, perhaps in that interconnected work with the other committees, folks across committees say, we think actually we'd like to generate more of a combined proposal that has sort of components, and maybe we'll ask the council to vote on components of this larger proposal that's more holistic of the work happening across the committees. So there's different approaches there. But we just wanted to note that we acknowledge that and kind of open to those. And we really want to go where the committee work leads. See a note in the chat. Oh, that's just the proposal template. Thank you for posting that, Susan. Wanted to make sure I didn't miss a question. And then in terms of how you all will contribute, we have a proposal for like a development timeline for the proposal at the end of this document. And so you can see what's going to be forthcoming in the discussions we're all going to be engaged in around the proposal development process. So a key couple things to note here. We do have a 3-hour meeting scheduled in January, and we are diving in, my friends. We're diving into the work. So we're going to be really sitting with post-secondary readiness, thinking about the high school accountability system, thinking about what set of options best reflect. And Jerry, to your point, sort of local innovations in accountability in Kentucky, and to vibrant learning and to that work. And so you can see the work here. I'm not going to read the whole table, but key point being that we're diving into the design work in January. We want to make sure, as we've said, that we want this work to be very connected to the work of other committees. So the outcomes of the January meeting we'll share with other committees, and we'll bring that feedback back to you all to say, okay, does this change our thinking in these areas? In what ways does it change our thinking? How does this continue to evolve? In March, there's a meeting, dates to be determined, working through those details, but that idea is to meet with the L3s, and there's an opportunity for that convening to really directly inform the work on the proposal as well. There might be some lessons learned that even a month before the Cool Council meeting, this committee would say, okay, this is influencing our thinking about menus, and maybe we want to add some options here, or maybe we want to adjust some other characteristics of the system. And then obviously the work between March and April is really to kind of finalize the proposal, to zero in on what those questions are that we're bringing to the question or questions that we're bringing to vote with the Cool Council in April. And so we invite you to dive into this work with us in January. In advance of that, if you have any comments on that proposal template, any initial reactions around grain size, organization, we welcome that. If anything's missing, of course, we would love to hear that as well. And then just keep an eye on the meeting schedule, and we hope you can prioritize being part of these conversations with us. So that's me kind of laying out a lot of information, but hopefully set some context for you ahead, forward context to have a sense of what to expect. I want to pause and see if there's any questions. And of course, if any of my colleagues in the facilitation group have wanted to note anything I missed or in my overview. Any questions? Does anything here kind of seem out of place, or are there any surprises for you in the work? Or are there any other connections that come to mind? Checking my wait time here.
So Laura, I think the only question that I have is, I know we'll be sharing this with our other committees. And do we have a timetable or some type of schedule in terms of sharing with our other committees so that we make sure that we give them time to see where we're going, or just drafts of where we're going?
And Kathy, just to make sure I understand your question, are you referring to a timetable for sharing the proposal as it's developed, or do you just mean sharing this overview so other committees also know how we're kind of mapping out our work?
I think sharing both, sharing this with the other committees to let them know where we're going. And then, of course, I know we'll share it with them before we make our final decisions, but just making sure that they understand what the process is that we're taking.
Well, I think, after this meeting, we could kind of consider this the working document, and that can be shared with the leadership from other committees this week even. So we can let them know what this committee has agreed to and understands will be our process going forward. And then in terms of the proposal work, and just to highlight it because I didn't mention it, that table at the end of that FAQ document kind of says, like, what's the work happening between the meetings? And that's the responsibility of the facilitation group, but that work consistently is connect with other committees. So that's a theme. And those meetings, there's leadership, combined leadership meetings across different committees. So that there are structures in place already for that connection making to happen. So we're not folks aren't left sort of blindly reaching out to each other and trying to schedule meetings. Happily, those meetings are already in place. And now we could just take advantage of using that time to stay connected about the proposal as it's developed.
Thank you.
I'll just add one other note, Laura, you already covered it when you said connect with other committees, but I think there's one key connection point, and that would be ideally we can be as productive as possible in January, really generative about the ideas we explore, and then we'll have something tangible to send to the other committees. So that gives them time at their in January to look at it, provide feedback that hopefully we can discuss at our February meeting. We have the privilege that we are the first committee that meets each month. And so what we generate can quickly get to the other committees in time for us to process that feedback in February.
That's a great timeline note. Thank you. So we'll look forward to, this is not the end of this meeting, but I'll just say we'll look forward to getting to the January column and really digging into the work with you all at that point in time. And in the meantime, I'll just underline that we welcome your feedback on the proposal. If you have any questions or other comments on the FAQ, we hope you'll reach out. We want to make sure everyone's really clear about what's coming up over the next 5 or so months. Thanks, everybody. I think pause again, just in case there's anything else. Okay, so I'm going to pass it off back to Jennifer, actually.
Thanks, Laura. Thanks for that overview and the great work on the FAQ document that will get us to our 6-month goal once it is finalized. Just wanted to briefly go over again the logistics. On our first day of the convening, we talked about meeting logistics and how we can get engagements from our members. And one of the comments that was made was to reduce the time during the work week at night, especially at night. So hopefully you see the change that we've made here to this December meeting, taking your feedback and implementing it, making tonight's meeting, reducing it to 1 hour from our regular 2-hour meeting. And also, you all recommended meeting for longer periods of time during the workday. So our January meeting, as Laura mentioned, will look at taking a very deep dive into a couple different places and products. We're going to meet for 3 hours. So that's going to be a virtual meeting on January 8th. And as you see in the overview of the development process that Laura just went through with you, that we're going to meet during that time. And that's what we're going to do, really the deep dive into what a proposal could look like and draft some options that we could send to the other committees. So I think, Kathy, that would help with what you're saying, as Susan mentioned, that we could send those proposals or that the information to our other committees and they could provide feedback on it. So that January meeting is going to be very important. It's going to be a work meeting and really diving into and producing some tangible information that we can share with other committees. Then February, we're back to a 1 hour virtual meeting from 5 to 6. Again, that is reducing the time frame. And then in March, as you suggested and wanted to meet more in person, so we're going to work with the Cool Council as a whole and bring together the L3s and meet with them and seek information and feedback from them. So it's going to be an in-person learning opportunity that we're hoping that we can tag onto and meet as a group and take some really good perspective from what we learned from the L3s to our proposal that then we're going to take to the council, the whole council in April. So taking the feedback that you gave us and direction that we got from you on that first day of the November convening and implementing those changes. So again, December and February, reducing the time frame, meeting in person more often, and we're going to do that in March, and then expanding that time frame in January. So that we get a really good progress on our deliverables. So those are the meeting logistics, again, all based on your good feedback on that first day. I will mention that during this time frame, we will have change in our leadership. Sarah Hatton will be transitioning off of our leadership for our Accelerating Innovation Committee, and Suzanne Farmer will be transitioning on. So we appreciate all the good work and guidance and leadership that Sarah has provided us during this first year. Came on not knowing exactly what was going to happen or what she was getting herself into, but she's done a great job, and we've really enjoyed your guidance, Sarah, your leadership. We're going to miss you, but you're not going far because you're remaining as a member of the Accelerating Innovation Committee, the standing committee. So you're leaving us as the leader, but you're not going too far. So thank you again for everything that you've done.
Thank you, Jennifer. It has been my joy and my honor to serve in this capacity. I feel like I have learned so much this year and am really excited about the direction that you all are taking us in for the whole state, and just the conversations and the feedback and the surprises even in a lot of the work that we've done, that the things that have bubbled up that have really been meaningful. So appreciate everybody's support, and I'm looking forward to continuing the work with you all. And so at that point, I think it's my turn, Jennifer, unless you've got something else on your agenda item. No, okay. So sharing and coordinating with other committees. So is there anything in particular? I really appreciate, let me backtrack on that sentence. Appreciate Susan talking to us about our 6-month goal tonight and the draft proposal for that. And then also the FAQ that Laura and Andre have put together. Please take some time between our meeting in January to go through that and provide your feedback to Laura and Andre so we can get that edited and make it, improve it. And I certainly think those 2 items are things that need to be shared out with our other committees. Does anybody have anything else that they feel like we should be sharing out with the other committees?
I think just not to belabor the point too much, maybe to give them a heads up that we're going to be seeking their feedback in January. I think giving them a heads up that that's coming would be helpful.
Yeah, and Sarah, we had talked at some point about sharing the design principles with them. So Laura and I have taken another look at that recently. Laura made some suggestions for how to just reorganize them in a way that I think tells a meaningful story. So we have a, what is a 2-pager, which is essentially just a text from the report, just slightly clustered, arranged into 3 different groups. And that could be shared at some point. I have to say, I don't know whether anybody has a strong opinion on this. I feel like it could be shared now as an FYI. Or a little bit more systematically, sort of maybe more in January after the working session, perhaps, when we have ourselves learned how to apply these in our design thinking, because we may want to sort of revise some of the language anyway. So I think sometime in December, January, we want to share those across the committees and get their feedback. I know we've been saying that again and again, and I know they've seen it in the report, but I think it would be good.
Agreed. Thank you, Andre. Susan, anybody else? Okay. Well, anything else before we adjourn for the evening? So this has been a whirlwind meeting, but it's lots of front loading on what's to come in our working meeting in January today, and just getting that set up.
Sarah, I can just tell you, sorry, one other thing. I heard from Karen Dodd. I reached out to her while we were having this meeting and checking on the Cool Council Charter, and she just told me that it's not going to go out for review this week because some people at the leadership level sort of finally had a chance to look at it. And I think there's a few issues that they want to iron out, for everybody. So there's some issues around, for example, I could imagine how members are being appointed. Can the vice chair and the chair of the Cool Council be members or voting members or chairs of another committee, those kinds of things. I'm sure that they want to talk those through a little bit. But I will say, as someone who has worked on the committee, it's an overall really good shape, and many different people have already given feedback on this. So, but I guess for you all, that means that you're probably not going to see this until, so if it's not this week, it will be next week before the holidays, and maybe even until early next year. I mean, we'll keep you updated on that.
Okay. All right. Well, if nobody has any further business or items to share, I want to wish everybody a happy holiday season, and looking forward to getting started with you all in January at our working meeting on the 8th, which is Monday. And I think that's it. Like I said, it's been an honor, and enjoyed getting to know each one of you, and excited to see where we continue to go with Kathy and Suzanne's leadership and the places that they're going to be taking us. So you all have a great evening, and Happy New Year, and we'll see you back in January.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Sarah.